So I've wanted to make a movie for a long time. I have an idea that I think is original. I think that it's something that people can relate to in many different ways, and then also really hit people that are open-minded or are interested just by horror or gore or the idea of faith and what it means, and the idea of eternity, and how, in my opinion, how important it is to think about your life and if there is an afterlife. But even for those that don't adhere to a faith or even believe that there's even anything after death, I find that this story is still important, and it's something that I just can't get rid of. There's a quote by Benjamin Burnley from Breaking Benjamin when asked about writing hit songs and how you know that you've done the right thing, and he kind of just smiled and said, "You just know. You just know that it's going to work. You know that people will relate to it, and you know that it rocks." And I do believe that. I think that there is plenty in this story and in this movie visually, and then also, you know, through dialogue and situations and characters that I think that are awesome. I think that there's many things I still need to flesh out, but to me, I've been hanging on to these characters for so long, and they've just become so real to me. I remember at one point, I was getting ready to write a very specific scene. It was a long time ago when Eric was still living here, and he knows that whenever I'm in creative mode, or that, you know, I am just dying to get, you know, my fingers on a keyboard just to get something out, that he learned very quickly that, you know, all right, let him do his thing. He's going to get it out and he'll have something cool afterwards, because that's usually what happens. Not to say that there aren't duds, because trust me, there are days that you feel like you can't make anything work, but there are times that you know for a fact that you're cooking and you just want to keep sauteing, you know? This night in particular, I was so gung-ho about writing this one part that I was, you know, I was excited about it because it was kind of, you know, at a pivotal point of the story, and it's really where we see where this plot branches off into two things, and there's two things that are simultaneously happening. So my mindset was, all right, cool, go ahead and, you know, get this bare bones first draft thing out, and that way you can move on to the next thing, and then, you know, have something to bounce the story back and forth. And people can think about this however they want to, and I think that people that are creative will understand, but I got about a paragraph into it and I just started crying. I started thinking about what I was going to have to do to this character to tell my story and to make sure that it pulls no punches and it does what it needs to. And I came out of the office after only being in there for about 15 minutes, and Eric could tell that I was not okay. And I told him what was going on, because God bless him, he has listened to all of my crazy ideas and has just done nothing but support me throughout the entire thing. So on that night in particular, it was him just being like, all right, man, what's going on? Like, you know, what bothered you so much? Like, talk to me. And since that day, it's been really hard to get back into it and to try to think about this world again, because it would be a lot like trying to make Death Stranding happen, you know, like where you don't understand the story, you don't really get what it's about, but visually and, you know, situationally, it looks really cool. And it's a world full of new rules and things that, you know, typically doesn't happen in a story. So I've always been fearful, and I haven't wanted to dive back in, because my two schools of thought is that one, the story is so big, I know that I can't afford to do it. I would need to have a lot. I'll leave it at that. But the other side of it too is that it's like, man, like I just, it won't go away. It's something that I think about every now and then. And when it comes up, like I'll talk to Crystal about it, or I'll talk to, you know, the people that are around me that I've allowed to know this story with, like a lot of the information, because it's something I've been trying to keep hidden. But also I need to tell people about it, you know, if I'm able to process it and ask questions. So I've made a declaration for myself that with this video is that I'm essentially going to pitch to you guys what this story is and what you guys think. I've got different concept art that I've made in After Effects. I call them motion posters. I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but it was a way to get my ideas out. And there's a playlist of that you can find in the description below. I'm sure I'll flash some stuff here on the video itself. But I've done that. I've done kind of a mock reading story of one of my very first drafts that I've done a while ago that I'll probably put in the description as well if you guys are interested to see it. But essentially the story that I want to tell is quite heavy in the fact that it's like, man, like just do it. Just do it. Essentially, the story that I want to tell is about what would happen if God was no longer in control. What would happen if there were impossible situations that happened that allowed someone else to take control of everything? Now, I'm sure the first question that you have is, well, that's impossible. How could that happen? Well, I have an answer. And it's something that is completely out there and makes no sense whatsoever. But to me, I think that that's kind of the brilliance of it, is that it doesn't need to make sense, because things in a spiritual realm or with rules and things that we're used to about how the natural world works, where when a wrench gets thrown in, it kind of doesn't matter because you're in the dark. But essentially what it is that this person has found a way to essentially get themselves in between the plane of reality and spirituality. And it's what I have called the middle. They have found enlightenment in a way that is not conventional, that is based through trauma, and does something to essentially make them ascend. And I got to be as vague as possible because I don't want to give anything away. It's the idea of, okay, what would happen if somebody else became God that isn't God? What would happen to the people of the world? Would the world become post-apocalyptic? Would it become chaos? Would there be new dangers? Would anything even change? It's a question that I've wanted to play with, because it's kind of like a spin on, I don't want to say Bruce Almighty, but it's the idea of that, man, okay, what if Bruce Almighty was serious? What if this person realized what it was to be God and then they broke all the rules? So instead of trying to be just and try to, give your people salvation and, like this, and this, all the things that you're used to when it comes to organized religion, or when it comes to having somebody in charge that is not good, well, now they're God. And really the main crux of the story is going to follow a gentleman named Arlo. And Arlo is a character that I have put a lot of myself into, but he's also somebody that I have taken some inspiration around, from different movies and different characters that I've really loved. Pretty much Anton Yelkin, if you want to think about that, that's who my main character would be. He's somebody that is, dealing with faith. He's someone who is very charismatic, but really doesn't have a lot of confidence. And that plays into his faith problem that he has. And it's essentially about him and one of his best friends that are going through this world that is now changed because of this dethroning of God. Trust me, I did not steal that from Bad Omens. This was all before then, before I even knew that existed. But I really want to tell a story about what it's like for somebody to essentially achieve the impossible and then somebody else achieving the impossible as well. Because sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. The main thing I think that will drive all of this is that I am fascinated with death. I am fascinated with the afterlife. I am fascinated by cultures and religion and anything that a soul can experience after, they spend their time on this planet is something that intrigues me always. Whether it's Dante's Inferno or if it's somebody endlessly trying to find nirvana, I'm fascinated about that. I love going down rabbit holes and just, seeing what people believe. And that's essentially the next part of this, is that I want to do eternal horror. I want to do something that will scare the shit out of you, but in the same hand, it will also make you think about your eternity, and it will make you think about what could be waiting for me and what's that like. Especially for me, growing up as a Christian and somebody that is very confident in their salvation, there's also that part of me that has that worry of, man, did I make the right choice? What waits for me after death? What waits for me that is a punishment? Or what waits for me that is something that is so terrifying? And I think that even atheists have this thing where it's like, they can have certain days that they'll think about the day that they're going to pass away. And it's like, man, like, is there nothing? Are we sure that there's nothing? And to be honest, this really gives me a playground to mess around and try some new things that I want to do with different versions of hell. Because with this person that took over, they don't just have one version of hell. They have a hell for everything. And it's essentially like a vast wasteland of multiple pocket realities that exist for each people or sector of people or person. And it's something that I've wanted to realize and try to bring into this physical plane on a screen and go, all right, this is how this would look. This is how this fits into the rest of the story. But in all reality, what I know for a fact that I can do is I can make some short films. I can make some scary stories. I can do some ideas that are relevant to this main story that I want to bring to life. So as I begin to steer into this and as I try new things, I want to take you guys with me. I want to show you my process with things whenever I can. I want to give you guys all the behind the scenes of where I'm at with it, but also leave enough mystery. That way you guys can enjoy the story and, you know, God willing that if it gets finished one day, it will hopefully affect you the way that it's affected me, which has not been only negative, but it has been positive. It's made me think about my faith. It's made me think about where I want to be as a person. The main thing I want to do is just entertain people, do a new form of horror, and get people thinking about their eternity and get thinking about the idea of a creator, because to me, that's important. If nothing else, make a fantastic scary movie that I think people could enjoy. But anything and everything that I've used to conceptualize this story, I will be putting in the description below. You guys can check it out and go on your own rabbit hole and see what you guys think. I really want your opinions on what you think of this. If you think it's dog shit, tell me it's dog shit. If you think that it's interesting or that you want to know more, then I will happily do that. I will happily show you guys my process and what's going on and where I'm at with it. This is weird. It kind of feels like I took a weight off of my chest in a way. I've been wanting to share this with you guys, and I thought about whether or not I was going to do it on a podcast or if I was going to, you know, dive deep, you know, somewhere else, or how it was going to come out. But I think that just turning on the camera and just talking to you guys and seeing what you think and picking your brains and also just taking criticism, because this is something I want to get right. I don't want it to be egregious. I don't want it to be something that is super offensive, but I want to be honest and I want to tell a story that I think is important and also show ironically that God is in control no matter what happens, even if he's kicked out. Either way, I'm going to leave it at that. If you guys want to know more about this and if you want me to dive a little deeper, I will happily do so if you guys have specific questions. But other than that, I feel a lot better talking about this and sharing this with you guys. So thank you for watching. Hit all the buttons if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time. Adios.